Umpire Mag feed, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 16 out of 32, I was joined by Los Angeles Chargers fan Henry as we look forward to the team's upcoming season. Henry discusses the concerns at offensive line.
Yeah, you could kind of tell as the season goes on he was feeling those hits, and potentially that's why we didn't. Well, there's a lot of reasons we didn't achieve so well in the playoffs.
I asked Henry about the addition of Mike McDaniel as offensive coordinator. You can't deny that at all. Certainly as a coach with the Niners, when now his job was purely to coach, he did a good job. And much more as Henry predicts the end of season record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host Andy Davis, and as you can see from the title of the episode, the team in focus today is the Los Angeles Chargers. Now with me, I've got a first-time guest on the pod. First time on the show today is Chargers fan Henry. Henry, it's good to have you on.
Morning, Andy. Lovely to see you. Great to be on the pod. Great to be back at it.
Yeah, we are recording this in the morning very early. Maybe the earliest I've ever recorded a podcast, certainly in the UK. It's currently August 1st and currently 6:36 a.m. So, early start, but we managed to find a time we can both do together, and it's ended up being this time.
Yeah, both might be a bit croaky voiced and weary-eyed this morning, but you got to crack it out anyway.
yeah, like for me, I find 8:30 in the mornings when I drive. So this is the kind of time I'm scrambling around, rushing around, trying to get ready for work. So it'd be interesting how it turns out. I do remember one time I was recording a podcast in the States from like an Airbnb, and it was I think 5:30 in the morning because I had to due to his availability, the guest, and my availability. That's the kind of time we went for. But yeah, that was quite early. And I was a bit paranoid about waking up my people on this Airbnb, but no one ever complained. So can't have been too bad. So Henry, you are a first time on the show, and we always ask our new guests the same question. There are 32 teams in the league. What made you pick your team? So Henry, what made you a Chargers fan?
It's a weird story. So I was always an NBA fan growing up, always a big LeBron guy. And I kind of wanted to get into the NFL was around the Super Bowl with the Bengals and the Rams playing. And LeBron was playing for the Lakers at that point, obviously now Sixer. And I said, I was like, right, I'm going to have to find my team. I wasn't too sure who to go for. I thought I'll go for an LA team. But the Rams had just won the Super Bowl, and I was like, right, I can't go glory chasing as much as I wish I did sometimes now. Now Aaron Donald's coming back. So I thought, I'll settle on being a Charger. At that point, I had no idea about the history of like San Diego or anything like that. I was so like fresh-faced to it all. And yeah, since then, now about 4 years, I've been a big Chargers guy, just learning more every day, really. Yeah, but now I feel like a proper Bolt, and I love it. I don't ever regret it, even though we're not winning much.
That's the thing, though. Like, yeah, it may be tough now, but there'll be one day where it's all going to be good. Like, so, I think NFL has a great history of punishing glory hunters and rewarding loyal fans, and I think one day you'll be rewarded. I think with sticking with the team that aren't winning or aren't winning, championships. There'll be a point where it will, because I do think the law of averages, there'll be 1 year where it all turns around for the Chargers. I know there'll be Jets fans who are over the age of 50, Lions fans who will be thinking, well, when's my time come? But I think certainly, with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you always got a chance of being competitive. And, I think one day, if you got Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert as a head coach quarterback duo, at some point it's going to work out. I think that's my personal opinion. Whether I don't think it'll be this year, but you never know. The AFC is wide open, so there's definitely a chance for a team like the Chargers, like the Texans, to make their first Super Bowl. not the Chargers first, to win their first Super Bowl at least.
Yes.
So, interesting times. But we'll head on to the ins and outs of the Chargers off-season. So, in terms of who the Chargers brought in, they brought in the likes of, they re-signed the likes of Khalil Mack, Denzel Perryman, Trey Lance, also brought in Alec Ingold, who is, reunited with his old coach, McDaniel, who we will talk about in a minute. Also brought in the likes of Dalvin Tomlinson, Charlie Kohler, as well as Keaton Mitchell. But you did lose the likes of Tyler Biatz to the Commanders, who we did mention previously in the Commanders episode. Mekhi Becton, Odafe Owe, Tyler Conklin, Elijah Molden, Asante Samuel Jr., Gus Edwards, and Hayden Hurst. And then in the draft, the Chargers took, in the first round, linebacker from Miami, Akeem Mesidor. They took another Florida-based college player, Florida center Jake Slaughter, 63rd overall. Then they took the likes of Brennan Thompson and Travis Burke in the fourth round, as well as Genesis Smith. You took Nick Barrett in the fifth, Logan Taylor and Alex Harkey in the sixth. Henry, for you, your overall take on your team's offseason?
I would probably, if I was to grade it, probably about a B. I think we had more holes to fill on the offensive line because we're looking very fresh going into this year on that line with the likes of Jake Slaughter. Biage at centre is going to be nice as a replacement. And then it's still that right guard spot's very up in the air. So I feel like we haven't fully addressed it as much as we would have liked to. And then, the likes of Joe Batonio, Wyatt Teller, like those kind of players, they're going to go off the board now and already have for some of those big names in the free agency market. So I feel like that needed to be addressed more. We could have invested in the first round in those positions, potentially like a Caleb Rutledge, even though it might have been a bit high. But no, I was happy with the draft. Mesidor's going to be a huge impact, and of course he's obviously got at least a year or two from Khalil Mack to learn, and then we've got Thule as well in there, so they can hopefully build a great partnership. And one of my favourite picks is Brennan Thompson. He can end up being absolutely nothing in this team. He's a fast receiver. But that is his game, is using that speed. So it could be absolutely nothing. But in a Mike McDaniel system, fast players, they just light up. And that is ultimately what we want to do. We need to light up this offense. Justin Herbert recently engaged, and I saw a post the other day saying there's a trend of NFL players when they get engaged and making Super Bowls NFL quarterbacks. So yeah, but no, this could be his year in Mike McDaniel system with these fresh faces around him. Hopefully a healthy faces would be a nice change. But yeah, I think my favourite signing is probably Njoku, because our tight end room really is young and not particularly experienced. You've got Kolar, who is ultimately a blocking piece, and Gadsden, who had a very solid rookie year, but once again, he's young. He's not like a top end pick. We can't rely on him to run the room. So experienced player like Njoku coming in is going to make a difference. He's got great hands. He's good blocking, and just having that experienced tight end in there will make a huge difference, hopefully, and just having another guy that can block for us.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, he's probably living a life that that a lot of people listening to this podcast would like, playing quarterback, and who he's dating personally. I think a lot of people would trade lives in an instant for that. That's all I'm saying. But no, it's an interesting off season for that, and there's been kind of we alluded to it earlier on in the show. There's been a big in terms of coaching. Not head coach, Jim Harbaugh is very much safe there, but there is a new offensive coordinator in town. And it is former Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, who is now coming in as the offensive coordinator. Now, this is someone that I know very well. He was our head coach for many years, and I absolutely loved the guy. I really did. I loved his personality. Sometimes it might have been to his detriment in terms of maybe being too pally with players, but you can't deny that. Certainly as a coach with the Niners, when now his job was purely to coach, he did a good job. And I think that part of his issue was he just wasn't maybe head coach material. I think you have to be a bit of a leader. But I think now he's going to come in as offensive coordinator. We saw at times, with Dolphins, the offense was electric, a bit one-dimensional. If you look at, we talk about it in the Dolphins podcast, but that sometimes it was a bit too reliant on throwing it to Hill and Waddle. But yeah, it could also be a massive masterstroke from the Chargers. For you, Henry, him coming in, can you see him and Herbert meshing as a duo?
I think him and Herbert can mesh as a duo. Herbert's he's a really open quarterback. He can kind of play any system. He's good on his legs. He's good in the pocket. He can do it all, and I think ultimately he will just soak up information. He's a quieter quarterback, and ultimately he's there to play the football better out in front of him. And whether that's run heavy like McDaniel can go, or these quick RPOs, screenplays just like that, it's definitely in Herbert's repertoire. He's one of those quarterbacks that you can just put anything in front of him and he can play it. Kind of similar to Josh Allen, he can cannon the ball down the field, or he can take off with his legs, like Herbert showed last year, a bit of a different element to his game at times, which was nice. I'd love to see more of it this year. I think if I was to talk about who's going to mesh, it'd probably be between him and Harbaugh, as they're such different personalities. Mike McDaniel, I don't think you'd see him vaping on the sideline anymore in a Jim Harbaugh team. That kind of those kind of antics. But you never know. It could absolutely hit off. But I think the worry for me is about the power dynamic between him and Jim, because ultimately he's going to want full control of this offense. And but also it could be too fast for Herbert. We've played very quite slow football. It's not been nothing particularly exciting the way we play. It's it's been very basic these past few years, and Herbert's not been challenged in the way he will be in a McDaniel system. So I'm interested to see how it will work. But I think for me the main worry is between him and Coach Harbaugh, sadly.
Yeah, very different personalities. I think that is a massive understatement, just how different they are. I mean, McDaniel, a very quirky guy, and Harbaugh, a lot more old school as a coach. But you can't argue with his record as a coach, both in college and NFL. I mean, he brought the Niners to a Super Bowl in what is called the Harbaugh Bowl / Blackout Bowl. So it's the thing is, I think I'm hoping that McDaniel doesn't go down the same route he did in Miami, where it was constantly, if the first read wasn't read well, then we struggled. But then that could be down to Tua. I think Herbert is a much better quarterback, and it pains me every time I see him playing, because we could have had him in the 5th overall pick. He was there. I will say, the one thing he has to overcome this season is playoff credentials. So I think that for me, I would love to have him there, but I think equally I'd have been very frustrated if he played so well in the regular season and then in one game has more interceptions than the entire 17 weeks before put together. But I think a big part of it is down to his offensive line, and that is what I want to ask you about. So Herbert had some struggles being protected in 2025. So statistically, he had 54. There was 54 times he was sacked, which is joints. Well, it's third in the league. Only Titans quarterback Cam Ward and now Raiders, but last season. Sorry, now Jets, but last season Raiders quarterback Geno Smith. Only they had more sacks, and that was only one more time than Herbert. So a big problem. Now I'm aware that the 4th most sacked quarterback was Drake May, and he made the Super Bowl. Does that worry you? Because that is a lot of times to be sacked in 17 games.
Yeah, it is absolutely a worry, especially, when you mention Cam Ward and Geno Smith. These are guys that were playing on, bottom tier teams last year and, top 5 picks in the draft. So it is a worry. We saw his hand injury last year, and that was potentially just the start of a very slippery slope. Um, but yeah, you could kind of tell as the season goes on, he was feeling those hits, and potentially that's why we didn't. Well, there's a lot of reasons we didn't achieve so well in the playoffs, but you can maybe give Herbert some leeway and say it's because he's been sacked that many times in a year. But I think Slater and Alt have now been cleared, and that is the best, if not the best, but probably a top 5 tackle pairing in the league. However, the interior, as I mentioned earlier, the interior offensive line is quite rough still. We've got Jake Slaughter, who was a centre ultimately in college, who's going to be shifted out to left guard. Then we have Tyler Biage, who's been a very average, if not above average NFL centre, but he doesn't necessarily have the guard play to keep him afloat. So I feel like he's quite stranded in that role. And then the right guard position is completely up in the air. We got Ivor Strange, who's once again he's been a backup who can come in, play when he's needed, be very much rotational guard, or Trevor Penning, who's a first round pick that failed in New Orleans. So while I am happy to have Slater and Alt back, and the likes of Jake Slaughter and Biage could take off, I am still worried. I feel like Justin could be in that, bottom 10 of quarterbacks being sacked once more this year. However, I think the scheme is going to be a lot quicker, a lot of running the ball, as Harbaugh likes to do anyway. That will potentially avoid him getting sacked. But also, we look at Tua was a man paired up with Mike McDaniel, and look at the amount of head injuries he took in that time. Not blaming McDaniel for that, but it's worrying when you look at the trend of it for sure. And considering Trey Lance is our backup, it's very worrying because that man can't play for anything.
This is a massive year for the offensive line. I just think if you can keep the offensive line handy and protect Herbert, then yeah, I think there is a potential there for it to be a good kind of a good thing. And you mentioned the fast play. I mean, yeah, I think with someone who has got a history of not making too many interceptions in the regular season, and I think he'll be welcomed by the fact that he'll be able to throw the ball off quickly. And yeah, it's interesting, but we'll find out in the season. And this is a good segue to our final segment, which is win, loss, or tie. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the process of win, loss, or tie, each fan that comes on will predict their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a simple answer of win, loss, or tie. Now, the Chargers season will start off at home for the first 2 weeks, and the first game is against the Arizona Cardinals. Henry, win, lose, or tie?
I think this is the easiest one of them all, and it's absolutely a win to beat the quarterbackless Cardinals for me, for sure.
Quarterback, they basically are, aren't they? I mean, we talked about it on the Cardinals season preview just a few episodes ago, and yeah, I mean, it's just whether it's Brissett, whether it's Gardner Minshew, whether it's Carson Beck, it's not great. It's not great, and factor in their schedule is for a team that's already bad. I've never seen a tougher schedule for a bad team, because normally, the team who has the fourth or finishes fourth in the division are often a team that has a favourable schedule. But they've got the NFC West, the NFC East, and the AFC West. So they've got, their schedule is Chargers, Seahawks, Niners, Giants, Lions, Rams, Broncos, Cowboys, Seahawks, Rams, Chiefs, Commanders, Eagles, Jets, Saints, Raiders, Niners. That is, for a team that's bad anyway, that schedule is really unforgiving.
Yeah, that is absolutely horrible. I'm sure Derwin James and Dante Jackson, all the people back in the secondary are going to have an absolute field day with whoever's throwing the ball, probably Brissett, but perhaps Carson Beck in there to make it fun at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think week one is going to be Brissett as a lock, unless he gets injured in practice or preseason. But, I think if you're playing in week 12 or week 13, I'd be a lot more unsure as to who the quarterback you're going to face is. And speaking of which, quarterback week 2, the team that picked the first overall selection was quarterback Mendoza. I don't think he'll be playing. It's going to be Kirk Cousins. Win, lose, or tie.
Another easy win. Raiders at home. Well, they have made improvements in this offseason. I love the pickup of Nakobe Dean to play in the linebacker position. I think it's just going to be another nice, easy sweep for us. Especially with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, past his prime quite significantly now, really.
Yeah, I think we're playing them week 1, and I think it's probably in the way it's a tough year for us. It's going to be that's probably the second most winnable game on paper is Raiders first week. It's I think that's quite a favourable start. I mean, there's some teams who've got a way harder start than this, so you can't argue with that. But it gets a lot tougher in week 3 as you face the Buffalo Bills on the road. You'll be just the second team to play at that stadium.
I'm going to be honest, it's going to probably be a loss. I think early season, at Buffalo, they're a team where you can never be sure if they're going to always turn up, the Bills, especially on the defense side of the ball. So it's a winnable game, but I don't see us doing it. I love the addition of DJ Moore they've put into that offense, and they look ready. They look ready to attack this year. So if we can get them on the other side of the ball, I think we can win. But I don't know. I think that offense is pretty unstoppable this year.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be one of the teams right up there in the AFC, contention this year. And it's questionable New jerseys. I will say I'm not a big fan of these grey jerseys. That it's horrendous. It's not great, and
they're not a jersey you could wear just on its own, really, are they? You need the helmet, and if you can't go around with that on you, certainly look interesting.
Yeah, weird choice there. Well, week 4, you're going from one of the AFC favourites to the current Super Bowl champions. You are travelling to Lumen Field and taking on the Seahawks.
Yeah, this is probably when we go 500 and we lose that game as well. While they've lost Kenneth Walker, I think, and some pieces in the secondary, I think the Seahawks team is it's the coaching. The coaching's phenomenal, and their work on defense side of the ball. I think it's going to be another loss for us. Probably, they're looking to go back to back. They're going to be really hungry this year, especially in how competitive their division is going to be. So I think they need to pick up the wins in games like this to get that record on track. So I think it's going to go 2-2 for us and a loss at the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to win it again, but I think they're going to be a team that's going to get far in the playoffs. I do believe they can go as far as the NFC Championship. I just think personally the Rams are just too strong. Well, week 5 against a team that the Seahawks very easily could have played in that Super Bowl if it wasn't for an injury to the quarterback. Denver Broncos in week 5.
This is our home game. It's the Broncos, isn't it? Week 5? Yeah, so I'm going for a win. If you've watched my podcast as well, Bo Nix, I'm a serial Bo Nix hater. I think he's the most overrated quarterback in the league. And I do not rate him at all, especially coming back off an injury. I think we beat them. I think we take the Broncos in week 5. I think we can outshine them on the offensive side of the ball, even though they've got Jalen Waddle now, which is a bit scarier in their receiving room, going from Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims to that. So it's going to be interesting, but I think we can get a win in that one, a scrappy one.
Yeah, still breaks my heart that he's there. It really, really does. Well, week 6, you're sticking with the division you're in as you're taking a road game to the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think in the predictions I did way too early on in the preseason, I had us winning this game. But seeing Mahomes starting to look healthy again, and whether Rashee Rice is available or not, because God knows what's going on with his personal life at the moment, will be interesting. But I'm going to go brave. After seeing what we did in Brazil last year, I think we can get a win on the road against the Chiefs. I think we can get a late field goal, pretty back-to-back, quite scrappy wins against division rivals. But I think we can take that one and go 4-2. Even though Mahomes is going to be healthy and a bit of more of a threat, but I don't know. I feel like they've got Kenneth Walker now, but Travis Kelce is past it. Mahomes is playing off a torn ACL. You got receivers having legal troubles. It's one of those where they could where maybe it's not the glory days anymore for them.
Yeah, I do think that because of how wide open the AFC East, AFC. There's no real, I don't think, clear favourite. The best two teams have got new coaches. You don't know how they're going to mesh. I think that there's definitely a gap open that the Chiefs could repeat. If they were in the NFC, I'd say they got no chance. I think the NFC is way too strong, and I do think they would lose in the Super Bowl if they were to make it. But I do think, I just personally still find it hard to write off Mahomes, even though he had a bad last year. The team didn't only won, I think, 6 games or 7 games last season. I just still think when you got Andy Reid, you got Mahomes, who has worked with subpar receivers before and won 2 Super Bowls. I do think that people are writing off the Chiefs, but I think they could be back. I do think they could return to their old self. Week 7 is a bye, so week 8 you are taking on at your own stadium, but as a road team, the Rams.
Yeah, that's a loss, isn't it? I think I don't even need to question that. They're the only team I can probably see this year that has potential to go 17-0. It's ridiculously good on paper, both sides of the ball. And in fact, I opened my phone this morning and I saw Sean McVay saying that it's trending upwards that Aaron Donald is going to be coming back, and he'll definitely be there for a home game at SoFi for the Rams. So yeah, that's an easy write off for that game. There's no point even travelling. Just play the backups for that one.
Yeah, give them basically the starters a 2 long week bye week at this point.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the Rams season preview that Donald might not be there week 1. So there's going to be a game where he's going to come back and there's going to be, I can just picture this massive entrance he's going to have, like a WWE style entrance. He's back. There's going to be all sort of stuff, fireworks, all this stuff around the stage. And when he returns, there's going to be some sort of introduction for his return. And this could be the game he returns in. You think at this point of the season, it could be, when he returns. So yeah, scary stuff to have the best defensive player of the 21st century playing alongside the current best defensive player in the league. That is a fighting duo. I will say, whether he's been 2 years out of the game, is he going to be the same player? We just don't know. It might be a Shaq at the Magic kind of situation for the Rams, but who knows? Week 9, you are staying in SoFi, but this time you are taking on the Houston Texans.
I think this is going to be a lot closer game than people think. I think it'll be a really low-scoring affair because their defense is ultimately, it is the best in the league. While the Rams may challenge that this year, but their quarterback play last year was atrocious, and while their offensive line was also really poor, CJ Stroud just wasn't there. And you look at that playoff performance, those playoff performances by him, he was genuinely, he just wasn't there. He was not his rookie self, and I just think you see him rocking up to preseason. I know it's what everyone's saying online and on TikTok, but he looks incredibly washed up, which is quite sad for someone who was so impressive in his rookie year. So I think it would be a low-scoring affair, but I think, home advantage. Does CJ Stroud even stay healthy with the offensive line in front of him? They've made improvements, but you've got to see how it meshes, and it is young. He'll be taking a lot of hits. So I think we can win a narrow, scrappy affair at home, which is a third scrappy win I'm putting in there. After a 2 long bye week. after that Rams game.
Well, Week 10 is a team that Jim Harbaugh knows very well. The former team of his brother. You take on the road the Baltimore Ravens.
I think we probably lose this one, with Jesse Minter being the head coach now, who's such an incredible hire. It may not work out. Some of these people aren't necessarily cut out to be head coaches, that are made to be coordinators. You look at Brandon Staley, but I think Jesse Minter might be able to escape that mold. The addition of Trey Hendrickson is, fantastic, and it's going to give them a bit of oomph on that defensive line that they've been missing. And, at the end of the day, you're playing against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, with a man who knows how we play. He knows our players. He'll be up all night studying for this game, because this is his game to beat his former team. So I think we lose that one on the road against Baltimore. I think, especially the home advantage for them, I think they should be clear favourites in that one, really, the Ravens.
Yeah, I agree. I do think he might be the kind of the final piece in the jigsaw. Maybe they need to finally reach a Super Bowl. I think he could be a fresh voice they need, and could be the difference for them personally. I think a defense that has been a problem for them in recent years, trying to keep hold of leads. So yeah, absolutely, this could be a genius hire. But Week 11, you're going from one extreme to the other. You're taking on the Jets.
Oh, that's an easy win. Once again, it's another one where you can play the backups and still get a win. But the Jets are actually looking a bit more threatening on paper. I do like the additions they've made this offseason, but I think it's going to be, quarterback play. I talk about coordinators that maybe aren't cut out for head coaching, and Aaron Glenn as well. Can they even register an interception this year, which I think is quite embarrassing for him as a ex-defensive back, and they couldn't register an interception last year. But yeah, I think that should be a nice easy win for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think Glenn could be on borrowed time. I do believe if they have even some sort of similarity to what we saw last season in terms of the record, and if they go a season again without an interception, I think personally it's curtains for him. And I don't think he'll get a job again as a head coach, in my opinion. Week 12, sticking with the AFC East, you're taking another home game, but this time against the New England Patriots.
It is a really tricky one. Obviously, they were in Super Bowl last year. Drake the schedule May at quarterback. Coming away, while we may not have the best home atmosphere out of all of them, but I feel, they're going, completely east to west. It's so tricky. I hate these kind of predictions where we are probably not the favourites for that game. They have improved the offensive line. They've got AJ Brown, but it's one of those where I feel like we just get it over the line. I think we can actually do it quite convincingly and surprise yourself sometimes. In these games that you believe could be a lot closer than they really are, and they might not show up. I'm hoping, and we might be. I'm saying we'll get a win, but at the end of the day, God knows what's going to happen. But I'm going to be confident and say a win for us Bolts.
Well, you're back on the road in Week 13. You are taking a trip to Raymond James Stadium as you face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
We could even pinch one of their players, Vita Vea, as we're a trade candidate for him. The Bucs are a team I can't really. It's one of those where you can't really predict until we turn up. Until it's week 1 and we see how they play. Baker's got a chip on his shoulder now. They could be without Vita Vea, one of the best players on that team. They didn't play great in the back end of last year, but I think home advantage, Baker playing with a chip on his shoulder, see how he's looking at this point of the year. I'm going to go for a Bucs win on that one. I think we could be quite tired out from this, tricky stretch of games we're going on.
Well, Week 14, you are then taking a trip to Vegas and taking on the Raiders.
It's always a fun game when we go to play the Raiders. At Allegiant Stadium, they are they always show up, and it's always a lot narrower than you think it will be. But I think we will take the win. Probably playing Mendoza at this point in the year because I can't imagine they're going to be you know at a point in their record where it would make sense to keep playing Kirk Cousins. So we'll see how Fernando does, but I think it's going to be another win.
Well, then in week 15, you are facing a home game against the 49ers.
And another really tricky one because it's obviously, it's a California matchup. The Niners just don't know where they're going to be at with their injuries. I want to say late in the season, it's going to be they're playing a lot of backups. You're probably playing against Mac Jones and some random receiver you've never heard of before, with Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall and Debo now. Probably could all be injured. You just don't know with that team. Defensively, they struggled last year, and once again, it comes down to health of players. So I think we can win a home matchup against them. At that point in the year, they'll probably be dealing with some knocks.
Okay, so in week 16, you are taking a trip to the Miami Dolphins, where McDaniel will be reunited with his old team.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say this, but I think it's going to be a very easy win. I'm not trying to dig, but the Dolphins have high. I was talking about the Rams going 17-0, and we can go to the complete bottom end of the scale and teams that can go 0-17 this year. I would say a win against the Miami Dolphins, but away in Miami, you never know what the weather's going to be like. It can turn on you. But I think it could be quite an easy win for us. It's one we should win. If we don't, there's issues.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're going to be a team that's when we win a game, it's going to be often a case of maybe upsetting a few people in terms of affecting people's seeds and all that and where they sit. So I think we could be a bit of if we're going to win a game, it's going to be a bit of a party pooper. And the Dolphins were actually the last thing we covered as a season preview, and we were far less optimistic than most fans. On spoiler alert, we are at time the least optimistic fans of our season preview so far. So do check it out and find out exactly what record we predicted in that show. But week 17, your final home game of the regular season, you're hosting the Chiefs.
They're going to be out for revenge. As I said, we'll take him at Arrowhead. But I think we go back-to-back years and get another sweep on them. I think we take a win at home against the Chiefs. See how they hold up in terms of, players being around. Rasheed Rice, I presume, has a suspension. I don't know how long it will be for this year. It also, I do want to go back on it because late season Mahomes is very clutch, and if the Chiefs are, within a playoff shot, he'll be playing out of his skin and making anything happen. I'm going to go for another sweep. I think we get the win.
Well, then week 18, you are facing a road game mile high against the Broncos. Henry, for the final time this episode, win, lose or tie?
Loss for that one. I think we probably, I can't even think what the record's looking at right now of my predictions, but I think we probably are in for a playoff shout. Late season at mile high as well. I think the Broncos, they are a team to beat. They are probably the favourites to top the West. Sadly, it's so tight, ridiculously tight in our division. But yeah, I think we lose that matchup up at mile high, sadly.
Well, that means, according to your predictions, you're going to finish with a record of 11-6.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think I've had similar when I've gone through my predictions, about what I can. Yeah, I think that's very similar. I think that is our window, really. I think we can go anywhere from 8-9 to 13-4. It is going to be a really tight year. That should guarantee us playoffs. But it could be three teams in our division getting playoffs. Bearing how the other teams do in the AFC. So it's going to be a great year. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think that's about right. 11-6.
And that will, you would think, that would 90% of the time that get you in the playoffs with 11 wins. I've never seen the team have 11 wins and not make the playoffs. If you were in the playoffs, how far are you predicting the team would go in the postseason?
Obviously, I'd love to say the Super Bowl. But I believe in my predictions I did earlier in the year. I think I had us going to the divisional round, I believe. I think we get over the hump of the wild card. I think that's just the most important thing. I think that's progress this year, if we can just get over the hump of the wild card. And I'd love to see us progress all the way to the Super Bowl. But the AFC side of the ball is the draw, is the weaker side at the moment, I'd say. But, whoever makes that Super Bowl is going to have a real challenge in front of them with those NFC contenders. But I'd love to see a Battle of LA at SoFi for the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say all the way. We get the Super Bowl and probably lose to the Rams.
I mean, that is kind of quite an attractive proposition to have. Yeah, that is, because I believe I read somewhere that is why they have teams from the same city in different conferences, but to have that potential possibility of having the battle for New York or LA or whichever city we're in reference to. So I think this is the best chance we've had ever, I think, of having an all-city Super Bowl. Obviously, I don't think anyone ever expecting a Giants-Jets one. So this is the best chance we've got. And to have it in the stadium they both play at as well, that would be good. That would be really good. I'm kind of here for it. I think I'd want, Bears against maybe Texans or Broncos, but I think as an NFL fan, that'll be amazing. Although I will think the airlines will probably lose quite a lot of money from travel if everyone's no one's flying from LA to get to a Super Bowl. So I'm sure Spirit Airlines or American Airlines will be wanting a non-LA Super Bowl for their business. But Henry, this is the end of the show. So first of all, a huge thank you for coming on today.
It's been lovely. Thank you for having me on, Andy.
No problem at all. And this is the end of the show. So this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast for team season preview 16 out of 32, them being the Los Angeles Chargers. I have been, as ever, your host today in Andy Davis, and our guest today in Chargers fan Henry, and we'll see you guys next time.